Kia ora. Good evening for anyone that's joining us. We'll just give it another 20-30 seconds for anyone else to join us, and then we'll get started. Grab a coffee, grab a tea, whatever your poison is, and we'll get started as soon as we can. Looks like Colin's online. Good evening, Colin. Looks like James has been sent out to the garage.
Yeah.
Let's get started. Kia ora, good evening and welcome wherever you're joining us from tonight. If you're watching a recording at a later time, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Nonetheless, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I hope you're all happy, healthy and well. I'm going to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I'm joining you from tonight, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend this respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might be joining us. As we have on previous occasions, I'd also like us to take a minute to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of their country. And if you can, I invite you to stand with me and I will read the ode. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Reverend Dr. Turi Hollis, who will lead us in a karakia.
E nei tātou. Kia tata mai koe e ihoa, ia mātua ine nei hei arehi aupununga ki te ora tonu. Hei āwhina, hei tiaki ia mātua I roto I ngā tini pūtanga kētanga, I ngā tini pāheketanga o tēnei ao mate mate. Ko I hukareiti hoki tō mātua ariki. Āmine. E te atua nau nei ngā hia tapu, ngā whakaro pai, me ngā mahi tika katoa. Ho mai ki au pununga te rangi Māori e korene e ahei te ho mai e te a. Kia pū mau ai o mātou ngākau ki te whakarongo ki au ture. Mau anō hoki ki mātou e tiaki, ke wehe I o mātou huariri. Kia ata noho ai mātou I rungi te pai I ngā rangi e tākoto ai ākene. He pai nei hoki, te mahi a tō mātou kai whakaora a ihu kareiti. Āmine. Whakamāramatia tō mātou pōritanga e ihoa. Mātou mahi tohu anō mātou e tiaki. Hei pāngia e ngā kino e ngā mate katoa o tēnei pō. Kia mahara koe ki te aroha o tautama o tō mātou kai whakaora o ihu kareiti. Āmine. E te matu kaharawa ka tukati kia koe ngā whakamamiti, ngā whakawhetai tēnei wā. I roto I te whakapono. E nā atu kia koe mo tēnei wā o te māwiwitanga o te COVID-19. Nō reira e te matua toro mai tori ngā te whai ki ngā tangata katoa I ko heri I roti tēnei ao. E rangi rawa mō rātou I roti I te Hohepa e māwiwi ana. Nō reira e te matua whakarongo mai kia mātou e ino nei kia koe I rungi I te ingoa o tō tamako I Ukraiti. Amen. Kia ora.
Thank you so much. I guess the series of 4 live video panel discussions, we set them up to allow us to stay connected even while we can't be physically together. but also to talk about the ways that we can stay healthy and well. And I guess in the context of what Father Turi just talked about, in the context of this global pandemic that's impacting us individually, as families, as communities, as a country, and as a world. And these discussions are made possible with the support of Caulfield RSL and the New Zealand Sub Branch of Victoria RSL, and also members of the community volunteering their time to join us. My name is John Capon. As with other discussions we've held to date, I'll be your host. I'm a psychologist, and I also volunteer as a welfare officer with the New Zealand Sub Branch and Caulfield RSL. Tonight, I'm fortunate to be joined by two people I have the utmost respect for, the New Zealand Sub Branch President, James Hohepa Smith, and Father Turi Hollis of the Christchurch St Kilda Parish. James and Turi are going to share their experiences, advice, ideas about how we can all stay spiritually well and maintain a sense of peace, purpose, and I guess meaning during these challenging times. Gentlemen, kia ora, welcome.
Kilda.
As I mentioned the other night, look, members' wellbeing is so central to why we're doing this. And if you're not in a great space, I implore you again to talk to someone, a friend, family member, your GP. Failing that, please call one of the great helplines that are out there, like Open Arms, Lifeline. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste kind of some of the details for that into the chat function. Please use them if you need to. Hopefully you can see that now. Let's talk Q&A. Down the bottom of the screen, there is a question and answer function. Last couple of sessions, I either haven't seen any questions or there haven't been any come through, but if you have any burning questions that you'd like us to answer, please send them through using that function. It'd be great to have you join the conversation. Similarly, if you have any tips, ideas, or experiences that you want to share about how you're keeping your spiritual well-being in focus, please share these with everyone using the chat function at the bottom of the page, and ensure that you select all panelists and attendees so everyone can see it. Now, final thing before we get started, there was a special day yesterday, and I'm not going to subject you all to my off-tone singing, but on behalf of everyone, happy birthday, James. I guess the celebrations might have looked a little bit different to normal, but I hope you had a great day and yeah, that you got spoiled. So gents, tell us a little bit about yourself and the role that you play in the, I guess, NZ Sub Branch and Caulfield RSL. And also, I guess, just how life has changed for you over the last sort of month, 6 weeks, and one thing you're doing to look after your well-being.
Kia ora tātou, kia ora te whānau. Thank you to all our guests who are joining us this evening. Firstly, I want to introduce myself. Ko tinana te kawaka, ko orowhana toku maunga, ko ngāpuhi, te rāroa, toku hāpu, toku iwi. Whakamāharatanga, toku marae. Ko pete ere, toku urupa. Ko hemi, Hohepa, mete, toku ingoa. Kia ora te whānau. Those of you who know who I am, those of you who don't, I'm from the far north in New Zealand, where I'm born and bred, a place called Kaitaia. That is my hometown, and my sub-branch to Kaitaia is Manukau Herekino, which is south of Kaitaia. That's my little place where I grew up. I joined the military in the Kaitaia Army Hall way back in 1984. Joined the Territorial New Zealand Army, did my 7-week training. After my 7-week training, at the end of that year, went to the Wau military camp for an annual field exercise, which is every year for the territorials. And at the end of that exercise, ended up going into another location called Burnham Military Camp in Christchurch to do a 6-month exercise with the 1st Regular Force Battalion. And as a TF soldier, mixing in with the RF soldiers, it was very difficult. However, I was given the opportunity to remain in regular force, and I took that opportunity and venturing South Island with the 1st Battalion. End of 1986, I was given the best opportunity that have changed my life when I was a young fella, and was deployed to Singapore for 3.5 years, or 2.5 years, at the end of 1986. I was very fortunate to serve in the same battalion as my father, and at the same location as my father in Tirandak when he served in the Malaya confrontation in 1962. I did not know that until I returned back to New Zealand in 1989, when my mum told me of my father's service. I was so overwhelmed by that, and I've stayed in the military since then, retiring from the service in 2003. On my return from Singapore in 1989, we were based in Linton Military Camp in Palmerston North, where I remained in the New Zealand Army until 1994, given the opportunity again to be part of the United Nations Protection Force and served in Bosnia for 6 months. And that was the first operational deployment for the New Zealand Defence Force since Vietnam. A major, large contingent going to Bosnia back then. After that, another opportunity was arisen in 1999, August, where again, serving overseas in East Timor for 9 months. Again, under the umbrella of the United Nations International Force with Australia, serving in East Timor. On return in 2000, in May 2000, I then got redeployed to Burnham Camp, and this time as an instructor for 3rd Training Wing in Burnham Camp. And part of that training was teaching LSVs, Limited Services Volunteers, which are kids who sign up on the benefit between 18 and 26. If they fail to get a job within 18 months, they end up doing boot camp. They have a choice to do the boot camp or lose their benefit for 6 weeks. And most of them do the boot camp just to retain their money coming in. And when they do go through boot camp, it's a really good experience to see these young kids with dreadlocks and skateboards turn around to become royal citizens of the public because they want to serve their people with respect. That was fantastic. I retired from the service, and then coming to Melbourne to meet my lovely wife was another treasure. Coming here to Melbourne, it was really hard to find a job, but not necessarily for an ex-driver, ex-military. Driving a truck and driving a forklift wasn't hard to get. So within 3 months coming here to Melbourne back in 2003, it was quite easy to get a job back then. Thinking I was going to come here and see the Rugby World Cup be taken by the All Blacks. That was a big fail. England took that away from us, and that was a holy heck, what happened? But that was a change where I made an opportunity to do something about leaving the career, and that's when I met my wife I have today. And I got involved with the Māori community because through her, she had friends, Māori friends, and said, would you like to row a waka? I said, a what? A waka. Oh, what's a waka? And that was my introduction into rowing the waka te karangatahi. And through that group of men back then that turned into a rōpū known as Ngā Hoi Waka. And the kaumātua of that rōpū was, may he rest in peace, Koro Pat Taipare. And he appointed me as the chairman of the rōpū at the time, as the rōpū was getting stronger and stronger until we ended up rowing the waka down the Yarra. And we broke the world record for the largest performance of the Māori haka outside of New Zealand. Previously it was held in London, and 2,500 Māoris in Federation Square in 2004 broke that record. And that's been beaten again by Canadians, another bunch of Māoris back then who have now beaten that record. So from that moment, I was involved with the Māori community through Kapa Haka and Te Karangatahi, and with my wife. Since then, it's been a progression of getting to know everybody through the Māori community. Koro Pat has been influential in my doings in where I work at the moment as a senior prison officer in Corrections Victoria, the men's maximum security prison. He was what you could say, an influence as well, with the assistance of two other kaumātuas who are now passed on. May they both rest in peace. Koro Marsh Mahuta and Tiaki Tawa, or Toto as he was well known. They too were influential in my standings where I am today. Koro Pat mentioned to me one weekend, way back in 2012, that I want you to attend this hui. I said, what's the hui all about? He goes, no, I want you to attend. I said, sorry, Koro Pat, I'm at work. So you will attend hui. I said, I'll be at work, Koro, I can't go. The next minute he's knocking on my door. Boy, come to this hui tomorrow. Oh, yes, I'm there. Through his insistence, consistent pressure, I went to this hui and I pulled a sickie out that day. And if it wasn't for this influence of Koro Pat, I wouldn't have been the founding president of the Victorian Māori Wardens. It was a success for 4 years when I retired from the Wardens in 2016. So the Victorian Māori Wardens have been another significant part of my life here in Melbourne. I'm sure most of those in the Māori community are aware of who I am and what I do. Which puts me in another position. I'm out of the Māori Wardens, but now I'm still part of the NZ RSL Sub Branch Victoria. And it's through that's where I am today. Influential to our people and our veterans, civilian and military. And I've been graced to have known Turi through the journey as well. Attended a few tangihanas, and it was just me and himself. Went to a tangihana by ourselves. We did not know the whānau, but it was an opportunity to express who we are, our wairua, to the whānau. It was, what you could say, Father Turi, a blessing in disguise, with our waiata and our presence that encaptivated the whānau with a peaceful and loving journey for their loved one to move on. And that brings us to why we are here this evening, spiritual connection that anyone and everyone can adhere to, or just follow their heart and where they would love to go from here. So that's a small piece of me. I don't want to take up too much time. Sorry, John.
No, you're all good. Thanks so much, James. I really love that piece around kind of following your heart. Kind of just made a note of that. I think that's central to kind of what we're going to talk. Well, it is central to what we're going to talk about tonight. So, thanks. That's a really good entree to that. Father Turi, over to you.
Kilda, ngā mihi kia koutou, kia kōruatahi. I tēnei pō, e karanga kia hau ki te haere mai, ki te whakawhiti kōrero ngā kaupapa e tākoto. Thank you, John, for the for the invitation to join you tonight, and for a kaupapa that is really important. Well, for me, it's very important. Now, so the question is, who am I? Ko waio? Well, I te taho o tōku papa no ko te mātātua te waka, ko makeo ko te maunga, ko waio te awa, ko whakatohea te iwi. I tōna taha anu hoki no ko taki timu te waka, ko whakapunaki te maunga, ko wairoa te awa, ko ngati kahununu ki wairoa te iwi. I te taho tōku kōka, tōku whaia, ko taki tumu, ko harauta ngā waka, ko haumie, ko pukutapu, ko hikurangi ngā maunga, ko waipawa, ko te arai, ko uawa ngā awa, ko Ngāti Kahununu ai, ko te aitanga mahaki, ko runga whakaata, ko Ngāti Porou ngā iwi. Ko Turi Hollis tuku ingoa. My ancestry is very much from the eastern part of the Bay of Plenty, from Whakatohea whānau Apanui, and if you follow that around the coast to Ngāti Porou, down through, across to Tupo o Taiao, you come into Mahaki, Taitanga Mahaki, Runga Whakaata, and you keep on going and you'll run into Ngāti Kahununu, the northern part of Ngāti Kahununu, e Wairoa. It's very much from Tairāwhiti Aho. And I am here in Melbourne because I came across, after many years of serving as a priest in the Te Pihopatanga o Aotearoa, the Māori section of the Anglican Church in New Zealand, as a priest, firstly based in Turanga in Gisborne, and serving there and up into the north to Ngāti Porou, and then eventually going back down to Te Waiponamu, where I was raised from early childhood up until I was about 11, but going back to Te Waiponamu, to Otautahi, where I was chaplain at Canterbury University before going on to becoming a canon and then archdeacon in the Māori section of the Anglican Church in Aotearoa. And during that time, in preparation for becoming ordained to the priesthood, I attended St. John's Theological College in Auckland, and there through there obtained a Bachelor of Theology from, by extension, but from the Melbourne College of Divinity, which is part of the University of Melbourne now, and that added to some other university degrees that I collected before then from Waikato University. Going to as chaplain to Canterbury was a golden opportunity to continue studying, and I began to look at the possibility of doing a PhD, and eventually completed one, and finally, after 13 years of part-time, no-time, part-time again, study in 2014. But the sad thing at that time was that the institution that I had been working to get a PhD to go and help and support, which was the Māori Anglican, was Te Whare Wānanga o Te Pihopatanga o Aotearoa, came to a close. And so the whole my doing a PhD was no longer needed. So I looked for a job and got the one here in Melbourne. It's brought me across to here within the church. And to do some ministry with Māori here in Melbourne. And some of the things, as James pointed out, is going and doing karakia with whānau Pani and Ero Te Tapori. And that's a real privilege. But I am also paid by the Diocese of Melbourne as the vicar, the priest here at Christchurch in St Kilda, Anglican parish. But in my ministry, I have had a great deal of and given a great deal of thought about spiritual well-being and te taha wairua, but also in my ministry, I've had a great deal of experience in not just European ministry, but with other cultures, so I bring to this discussion tonight rather an eclectic perspective on things, but very definitely coming from a Māori position, because I am Māori. Mm-hmm. And we began tonight, and I thank you for the privilege of saying the karakia and doing it in the Māori language. I don't know how many would have understood it, but they're prayers which very much reflect the Christian presence and the Christian faith, but also accepting people as people are, as human beings, whatever faith, whatever culture, whatever background you might come from. And so with having that, however, I bring myself as a Māori into this discussion. Nō reira, he mihi kia koutou katoa, e mātakitaki tēnei, e whakarongo ki a mātou i tēnei wā, ki a koe anō hoki e John, ki a koe anō hoki he me e James.
Thank you, Father Turi. I was just kind of listening to your eclectic journey and thinking how kind of privileged we are to have you found your way to us and to have you in our lives. We also share a kind of a similar journey. I grew up on the East Coast. I grew up in Gisborne. And then also studied at the University of Canterbury, and there are probably a number of different kind of points in my time where I could have used the guidance and sage wisdom of someone such as yourself. But we are here now, and I feel privileged that you are. So thanks for making the time tonight. When I was kind of preparing for this conversation, for me, spirituality, probably quite erroneously, I've always equated it with faith and religion, and I'm not necessarily someone that has kind of the strong sense of faith or religion. And I kind of Googled spirituality, and it kind of put me back on this track that it whilst it is about those things, it's also about kind of having this sense of peace and purpose and developing beliefs around what's important to you as an individual. So just wondering from your perspective, why are these things so integral and important to our holistic well-being, and particularly so in the context of this kind of global pandemic and the impact that it's having on everyone's lives?
Can I just I hear the distinction between spirituality and religion. I hear that often, and for me, there is a distinction. Religion is just the way people practice and do in a very physical, concrete way how they believe their spirituality should be expressed. Mm-hmm. And so we have within religions, the Anglican religion, Hindu, Buddhist religion, different ways of doing things, of expressing their different spiritualities. And for me, spirituality is, a person's spirituality is the essence. And I say that as a Christian, but I also say that as a Māori, because we have three, some would say we have more, but as Māori, we believe in the spiritual, te taha wairua, the physical, te taha tinana, and the psychological, the intellectual aspect, and that's te taha hinengaro. And there are three very much aspects of who we are as human beings, of which, consisting of those, of which spirituality, te taha wairua, is a very much, for me, is the primary of the three. And because for me, it is out of the taha wairua that the physical and the hinengaro come. And I say that because as a Christian, because of God creating humanity out of as he did the Adam and Eve in the stories in Genesis, but also as a Māori, if you believe in I or matua, the way in which humanity was built, the hine ahone was made out of clay, and the different atua work together as a team to create the human being from which humanity has come. And so spirituality is very much a central part for me, very much a central part of our human being. And to give prominence or a primary focus to te taha tinana, te taha hinengaro, is lacking. If you just, and even more so, if you ignore te taha wairua altogether. So when I look at the situation where we're in the world today, my prayer is that we as human beings may recover and rediscover how important our taha wairua is. If we are conscious of our taha wairua, that we nurture it along with our nurturing our taha tinana, our taha hinengaro as well. But I'm not saying that we ignore our taha tinana, our taha hinengaro, our physical being. We don't. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that we should ignore our taha hinengaro. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they are integral, and that's what makes us a human being, and that's a real gift that we have for ourselves, and valuing ourselves as human beings and how precious we are as human beings. And part of in a discussion earlier today, in a group discussion, talking about who am I? Ko waio. And the answer, who am I? And trying to find the answer to that, well, that's a lifetime journey of discovery, of finding out who you are. But hinengaro, tinana are important, but equally important, and in my case, I think it's very important, essentially important, is te taha wairua.
Which, you sort of said before, it's our essence. And then I really like that, who am I? It's it seems like such a simple question, but in order to answer it, like you've just sort of said, it's this lifelong journey. But to me, what it starts to then, it's this combination of culture and values and beliefs and the expression of that in a really authentic way. Yeah. So I guess, from your perspective, or for both of you, James, Father Turi, what are some of the things that you're doing at the current time to maintain your sense of well-being, and in what is a pretty challenging, I guess, context?
Kia ora, John. Thank you, Turi, for your explanation earlier. Taha wairua. To answer a specific question on how this is me, and for everyone out who are listening and watching, I myself and wifey, we do a karakia every night before we go to sleep. Even if we're drowsing off watching a movie, before we both get to bed, we have our own karakia together. In the morning, we have our karakia. It's a prayer. It's what we do every morning. It's religious. And it's a moment of just both of us holding each other's hands and just blessing the day ahead of us, whatever day it may be. We tried the utmost to adhere to having a karakia, and it's just a blessing in disguise. You know, it happens as second nature for both of us. It's the same with having food. We always have a karakia before we have our kai, and does not matter where you are. We always put that in the forefront. We could be sitting at McDonald's having a quick meal. We always sit there, hold each other's hands, kia tau, ba, 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 everything else for our kai. And it's the same thing for us going to bed. And this is just me. And this is something that people may would like to adopt. It's just having a blessing for the end of the day. Thank you for giving us life and everything else. And that's just something for individuals to express themselves. They may have to read it out loud if they're by themselves or with their family members. This is something they can put together as a family or themselves individually. And that doesn't have to be out loud. It can be just in your mind. Okay, I'm just going to have a moment of silence. And it's that moment of silence is me having a prayer to myself, to not yourself, but to your beliefs and your religion. So we're not here to dictate, but as Father Turi mentioned earlier, everyone has different religions. It could be to Buddha or Allah or our Lord Jesus Christ, or to our atua. And this is dependent on every individual. If they have that right feeling in your heart to do what's best for yourself and your family, then why not adopt it? If you believe it's a good thing to do, then so be it. You don't have to be religious or a born-again Christian. As long as you know what's right for yourself and your family, follow your heart. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there are people out there who doubt it, and that's okay. Let them doubt. It's okay. But this is just my piece of how am I coping with this moment as we go through level 3 with the world pandemic, is we pray. And there's nothing hard in just having that 2-minute silence and praying to your beliefs, and that it's a good thing for yourself and your family. Just peace.
Yeah, I like that idea of continually checking in and connecting with what's important.
Yes.
You know, I sort of said before, I'm not necessarily religious, but what I have sort of during this time is, for me, it's kind of reflecting on what are my values and what's important to me, and how do I want to live a life that's connected to those values.
Yes.
You know, so some of the things, and I mean, James, you know, we've only recently met, but I don't know whether or not this comes through, and I'd love to get your feedback. You know, like I kind of went through it, and some of the values that came up for me were things like integrity and excellence and expertise and service and connection and love. You know, like it's kind of, so for me at the current point in time, and I've got to get better at doing this as we come out the other side, is how do I stay connected to those values and find ways to express and to live a life that's consistent with that? Because to me, that's the expression of kind of my essence and kind of what's important to me, and how I sort of stay connected to that and live a life that's, I guess, for me, is authentic and meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Father Turi, how about for you? And I guess in your work and kind of sort of staying connecting with your congregation and the broader community at the current time, what are kind of some of the ways that you're managing to do that, and some of the messages that you're sharing and that you think our audience might benefit from?
Well, there's a number of things. One is with the congregation, with the shutdown, we can't have services in the church now. And but what we're doing is that we're using Zoom and live streaming one service on Sunday at 9 o'clock on Sunday mornings to the congregation and anybody else who wants to tune in. That's one way of doing that. It was during Easter week and Easter weekend, we also, in addition to the Sunday service, had the service on Maundy Thursday, which is over Easter. There are a number of services that we have, but we were only able to just do 2 over Easter. But that was a way of connecting with our congregation and they with them, they with us, because we have a phrase, it's Maori, ka tū te whare muke muke. The church, well, in this case, it's a whare karakia. The church that stands is lonely, and so like some of our marae are lonely. But if the church has been empty, like ours is now, we have to try and connect people somehow, so that the church, so that the building, the whare, is not lonely. But also, I have, like James, have personal prayer with God every morning, and at the close of the day. But during this time now, we've started through using Zoom again, the live streaming morning and afternoon prayer. The morning one is at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the other one is at 5:30 in the afternoon. So, during the weekdays, and I have that anyway. So everybody is welcome to join me in the daily services. So that's another way of connecting with our congregation and with us. But there are other things which we are doing. In the parish, we have a community centre, and through that and through the staff there, well, they are themselves in their work in their own right. The Christchurch Community, Christchurch Mission is providing emergency food to the community and people, not to parishioners, but to the wider community, and also continue to provide our evening meal on Wednesday night, which is free. But we've had to change the way in which we do this. Of course, people have to line up for it, and it's served as a takeaway meal. And people have continued to come and get that. The number of people coming for the emergency service food has as you'd imagine, has increased considerably. There are other things, ways in which we are continuing to do things. I mentioned we have on Tuesdays working with one of the local counselling groups. On using Zoom again. It's a useful tool, the Zoom. I tell you, one of the things that it's been a steep learning curve for me, and I keep saying this dinosaur of a fella, to learn all this stuff about modern technology and how to connect and make use of it. But we have a working with First Step. A group, have a men's group on Tuesday afternoons, and so things like that. Some of them using the modern technology have continued in the activities, but one of the other things which we've continued to do here in the parish also with the community centre has continued to do is with volunteers, people going and doing people who are in isolation who are lonely, doing their gardens, those who have got gardens, which has been has been a bit of a challenge, and making sure that people remain safe and well, not just the people who have the gardens, but also the volunteers that go out to them. But it's important for the morale of people that they can look out into their garden and see their garden is being cared for, whilst they're not able to do it. So that's the sort of things that but a lot of other people within the parish are doing at this time. And I know that organisations and other parishes are doing similar things to what we're doing.
Those virtual services, those virtual prayers, Father Turi, if anyone wants to join, how can they go about doing that? Or where would they find the information?
Well, they can find the information on our parish website. Our parish website, which is www.christchurchstkilda.org.au.
Thank you very much. There's a question that's come through from Kitty. Kia ora, Kitty. She's basically sort of said everyone on the panel has family and partners to isolate with. And she's wondering what advice we might have to help lift the spirits of those who are isolated or living alone. And what can we do to, I guess, provide that level of spiritual connection with them so that they don't feel that confinement of being alone. And one of the additional call outs is that they don't necessarily have internet or video calling kind of. So what are your thoughts and ideas in that space?
Thank you, Kitty, for the question. Just a simple connection with that person. As you mentioned, there's no internet connection, not whatsoever. Hopefully, if there's anyone out there that are wanting to be part of getting a spiritual connection, firstly, if you could make contact with our members, any one of our members of the NZRSL, or even through the Christchurch St Kilda faith or the church, getting hold of any one of us, hopefully we can then follow through with any contact with anyone out there in that same situation. So making contact will be a great start. First, hopefully we can get something going, if that's possible.
One of the things which can happen there is for those, we have parishioners who don't have television, who don't have computers, who don't have mobile phones, but have landlines. And so we've got people who are keeping in contact with each other and with people. Those who got landlines can phone in and participate in the services. But what's important, and for me, it's encapsulated in the Māori word whanaungatanga. Whanaungatanga is about connections, whether it's by blood, as whānau, blood relatives, but it's beyond that. In addition to that, it's all whatever connections you have. And it's maintaining those connections. And one of the things which is possible, we've got a list of parishioners that we can make not a roster, but have a list and share that among our parishioners to make sure that they will keep in contact with others. And I phone around my parishioners as well. Kitty, we have a list of members and also a list of veterans, and it's how making and ensuring that connections are made. Do you wait? The question is, do you wait until people make the connection to you? Or do you get out and be proactive and start making the connections yourself? There is an issue there. You need to have people who, within the, talking about the RSL, within the RSL who are able and are prepared to volunteer to do that. it's not to be counsellors. It's because counsellors are appropriate. Like John, you're a counsellor, and have said, but other people can just bring up and say, "Hello, Kilda, how are you? How's your day going?" Those sorts of gentle questions, and just to make sure that people know. The intention is to make sure that the connections are maintained at this time.
Yeah, I think that's such a simple but powerful kind of message of, I guess, kind of support and letting people know that there are actually people out there that care and want to stay connected. James, maybe something for us to take offline as a group and think about if there are ways that we can do that. I think it's a great idea.
It is definitely something that I would like to pursue and follow through. In the next couple of weeks, I have time off, so I'm going to make a contact with our members and hear the phone first and see if it's in. As Father Turi has mentioned, just a simple hello is suffice. And then from there, hopefully, continue the conversation further. And just making that first initial contact is a step.
Yeah.
So, and that's something, I'll speak with my committee, Kitty, our secretary, and Sonia, our vice pres, and our close committee members, and just pass it through them first. So, hey, what do you reckon? And hopefully we get some positive feedback. And support for our members and veterans. So it's a start, but hopefully we can get something from this. We'll get the ball rolling.
I'm just kind of scrolling through kind of the chat as we're talking, and there's just so many kind of messages there that kind of some of the audience are just expressing their gratitude for, I guess, the advice, the ideas, and everything that I guess both of you are doing and offering in the community. So thanks everyone for passing that on. Gents, you both identify as proudly Māori, right? And culture is clearly something that's really important to you. Look, I'm ashamed to admit that this Pākehā doesn't know kind of a great deal about what spirituality means in the Māori culture beyond what I learned and what I remember from school. And I think the stuff that kind of sticks in my mind is the relationship with kind of the land and waters and kind of the lakes and the mountains and things like that. So can you help me and anyone who's watching or listening and who might be interested to better understand, I guess, the significance of that for you?
For sure. Don't be ashamed, John, and for our listeners out there, don't be ashamed that you cannot make that connection, as Father Turi mentioned, to Hawairua. My wife is just as white as you, my bro, so don't be ashamed of that. She has, for those who are listening as well, an object, like, for an example, I'll give you an example, a canoe, or as Māori know, as a waka. Now, from the outset, it looks like a wooden object or made out of fiberglass and makes it float and everything else. But to Māori, it's a living being, a waka, a marae, a whare is a living being. So we treat it as a living being. And for, as a, no disrespect, our Pākehā friends out there or Caucasian see it as a wooden house, a brick house. So there's a big difference from an inanimate object and a being. A being is the person or a person. It represents a live person or the spirit of a person. So there's, and the same relates to on the outside, on the outset, our oceans, Tangaroa, our forest, Pane Mahuta, and everything else that as Māori we treat as a living being. The environment, the land, the whenua as a living being. Papatuanuku and Rangi as our sky father. So there are the differences as in your sense, John, or anyone else who's listening. How do we relate the Māori to the Pākehā side? hopefully that gives you some understanding of how Māori looks at objects. Said, oh, it's a beautiful whare. It's marae. And so we'll look at it. It's a nice little building. It's got these nice little carvings. It's nice, being respectful, but at the end of the day, it's a living being for us as Māori. And that respect is given when we enter that whare. We remove our footwear because of that reason, as one reason of respect for that whare or marae. We still treat it to this day, those who believe in such. It's part of who we are as Māori. I'm sure you would have come across it in your times back home. Oh, how can we take our shoes off? Because of that. Removing our footwear, entering the whare, into the inside of a house of that whare or that marae. Hopefully it helps with others out there who are listening. What's the difference? How can we connect to become more spiritually connected as Māori? So I hope that helps in my 2 cents.
I really like it, but it starts to connect me in terms of kind of why that is so important in terms of kind of spiritual well-being, I guess, for you. So I guess, does that change being in Australia? You know, and how do you keep that? So how do you keep that alive here? And has that changed at all now that we can't kind of physically be together?
I hear you. We're in a different country. See that flag at the back there? And there's another one beside it. Yep, that's another one. Now, because we're in a different country, our practices or what we do as Māori never changes. So the house that we are in today, and wherever you may be, in the world of wherever you may be, we still treat the house because it gives you that shelter. And this is just my 2 cents. But you treat it exactly the same. Our whare, very fortunately, has been blessed by Koro Pat, and from that day onwards, this place has just been full of wairua ever since, full of love and aroha. In the past, it would have been another development of, we don't know what's been in the ground for the last 40, 100 years. Could be in a cemetery way back in the day, or some people would have passed, or we would have no idea. But the spirits are still living on the land of this whenua, be it in another country or this country. It respects to the people of the land of this country. But that we still treat it as taha Māori. The house has been blessed by our kaumātua. Everything is still the same. And thank you, Kitty. As Kitty has just mentioned, every whare that she resides in has been blessed, and she feels comfortable with that. And that I'm sure most Māori will feel the same as well. That every whare we go into, we bless it, knowing that it's going to be our whare, and it's a safe place for us as Māori. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, or answers your question.
Certainly does, and thanks for kind of giving me that window or that insight to what's important to you. Father Turi, anything to add or share?
Well, yeah. We as Māori, we have an interesting perspective on existence and everything in it. What James has described as very much part of that. And we have I'm Māori and I'm very proud of it for all sorts of reasons. A lot of life experiences, being put down as a Māori child and not being allowed to speak my language, and going with my mother to a hui where her first language was te reo, and it was beaten out of her when she went to school. And I mean beaten out of her. I attended a hui with her, and she got really tongue-tied when her cousin challenged her to talk in te reo, and she couldn't. You could see her struggling, wanting to express her thoughts, and she could, but she couldn't physically. But having seen that and my own experiences, I'm proud to be Māori. And And all these things that make me who I am, I talked about, like James, my paper heart at the beginning, the mountains, the rivers, and my iwi, and the canoes even, are part of who I am in terms of my identity as a person, as a human being, and as a creation of, for me as a Christian, as God's creation. And so what does that mean? It means that, again, what I said before, how I see myself and the value that I see of myself. But then it translates into how we see the world and how we relate to the world and how we deal with the world. And how do we deal with the world? Well, we can respect it and care for it, or we can trample on it and destroy it. And if you look at our history, Maori history, it was a matter of survival. A matter of survival as an iwi, as a person, that we needed to treat creation, the existence, the physical things that surrounded us, our tipuna, and otherwise we would have killed ourselves. And so what am I talking about? I'm talking about how do we translate that into 2020? Well, one of the ways in which we can translate that into 2020 is how do we give value, and the principles that you were talking about, John. How do we do them and live them, and how? But also, how do we understand them? You know, we as a priest in the Christian religion, I have all sorts of teachings that have come down from that. Into that, I bring my Maori teaching and weave them together, and I mean weave them together, just as my grandfather, my great-grandfather, who became Christians for some very good reasons, took it and started weaving it together and have passed that on to me, and I hope that I'm passing on to my future my kids, my grandkids, and to others. To weave these things together and make sense of them and make sense of existence and life around us. And in 2020, what does that mean with this disaster of COVID-19 going on around us? What does it mean? Well, we know that humanity has made some amazing creations over time. Is COVID-19 a creation of humanity? Don't know. Maybe it's a creation of God's creation being extended. You might speculate and say and think that. But what does it mean in terms of how do we relate to it? Mm-hmm. And it's going back to those principles that you're talking about, John. How do we relate to? How do we relate to it? And how we relate to it is how we treat it, and in particular, how we treat others in the midst of it. How we treat others in the midst of it.
Yeah, and I kind of come back to, I wrote down kind of one of your early comments, accepting people as they are. You know, and I kind of, for me, that's a real powerful piece that I kind of added sort of, you know, like that implies that we're accepting them without judgment, and there's a real compassion and genuine care, and that kind of seems to be this theme that kind of underlies everything that you've just said, and also what James sort of said before, and that I sort of take out as kind of one of the key messages. I was also kind of just what you're sort of saying around that, distilling kind of everything that there is and being able to weave it and bring it together. That's kind of a very similar process that I go through in terms of refreshing and reflecting on my values, is that I'll kind of go, what are the experience that I've had that have kind of really highlighted what's important to me? They might be positive or they might not. But it's a really powerful way for me to understand kind of what makes me feel alive and connected, and kind of enhances that spirituality, or what are those experiences where kind of I feel like particular values or things that are important to me are being suppressed. and that kind of helps me to kind of distill down what's really important to me and kind of reconnect me to that stuff so that I can go, you know what, how am I actually going to go forward and act in a way that's consistent with all of this stuff and be really authentic and true. And a lot of kind of my values that I kind of started to talk, the stuff that's important to me that I was talking about before, is fundamentally related to how I treat and how I interact with others. So I really love that came out as a call out from you as well. So thanks for sharing that. Gents, I'm really conscious of time, and I sort of said that I'd try to keep this to 45 minutes, but it's been such a great conversation that we've gone over a little bit. Hopefully people can kind of stay on for just a couple more questions. There's a couple of things that kind of that I sort of really wanted to touch on before we sort of finished up from a spiritual wellbeing perspective. Just before I kind of finish up with a kind of an Anzac Day-ish question, 2 or 3 things that you hope that, or tips, tools, kind of strategies that you really kind of wanted to highlight as ways to maintain spiritual well-being at the current time.
I think part of the Lord's 10 Commandments, be good to thy neighbor. That's one. Be good to thy neighbor. And it's just what you could say to every person you engage with in any day during this pandemic, is treat them with respect and be kind. So if it's being good to thy neighbor, and you get the opportunity to know your neighbor a lot more now than previously. So be it your neighbor on your left-hand side, the right-hand side, or at the back, get to know thy neighbor. And that's how we can love thy neighbor. And it's one way of, becoming a lot more closer to them today than ever. And good opportunity to, hey, go for a walk. You're going to come, you can be 2 meters behind me or 2 meters in front. But it's an opportunity to, you're out there and engaging with people. It's going to uplift your spirits, just engaging with other people. Whether you reside by yourself, good opportunity to go for a walk and exercise, be it around the block, but be good to your neighbor. Yeah. That's one tip.
Sure. Thank you. Father Turi.
3 Maori words, and some of which I've been mentioned. One is whanaungatanga, and that's the connections, whether, as I said before, by blood or by relationship, and maintaining them. And I talked about that. The other is, that's whanaungatanga, is manaakitanga. And it's the Maori word for it. It's often translated as hospitality, but actually it's more than you offering hospitality or receiving hospitality from somebody. It is actually going the extra step of thinking ahead before whatever you offer is offered. It's the thought and the thinking that goes before you do something, as well as what you do. And for me, if to go away from here is to think about, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And I guess what I'm thinking, I would like to encourage you to think about the motive behind, going back to your principles, John. The motive for doing something and then acting upon it. And the third thing is he aha te mea nui ko te aroha. What's the greatest thing? It's love. And again, the same thing. We think about love, but what does it mean? And is it just a physical thing? Predominantly a physical thing? Well, in these situations, the physical hugging is not possible if you want to be safe. But you think of other ways of sharing aroha. A nod, or raising eyebrows. You know, some people say it's a kahununu, Kilda, raising the eyebrows. Well, I think it's very much a Maori thing, raising eyebrows of the head. Your eye, yeah, James, that too. You don't need to actually physically touch, but it's to express that. And it's also what you say to one another and how it's said, that sort of thing. So be kind to others as well, and they will be kind to you. Well, some not, but nevertheless, what they do is not your responsibility. What you do is your responsibility. So those are my 3 thoughts, John.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. Some really great takeaways there from both of you. Anzac Day is fast approaching. This kind of be my last one. It's clearly going to be an Anzac Day like no other. But let's talk about kind of the Anzac spirit, and like for me, that kind of brings forth qualities like mateship and selflessness and kind of courage and endurance. So what are you doing to remember and to keep the Anzac spirit alive this year?
For me, as you mentioned, it's a big event here in our street, a little court of 8 properties. I've put out a letter to our neighbours 2 weeks ago that we will be doing Anzac. Very fortunate that I live in a court where opposite the driveway we have a nature strip. And in that nature strip, a tree used to be opposite our driveway. Council came down one day and pulled the tree out, left this big gaping hole in there. So I said, Self, that's a good place to put a flagpole. So I do have a flagpole in there. It's currently sitting in the garage here. It's a portable flagpole. It's about 7.4 meters high. I've already erected it to give it a test run over the weekend. And I've got these 5 tablets in the back of the flagpole up against the fence. These tablets are about 500 mils by 500 mils square. And I painted over them white and written on them the 4 key words that are written at the end of the Kokoda Trail. Now, the end of the Kokoda Trail, these tablets are granite stone. And the 4 words that are written on there is endurance, as you mentioned, mateship, courage, and sacrifice. Those are the 4 words that I've put onto these tablets. But there's a 5th tablet that I've added into the tablets, and on that tablet is aroha. So I have these 5 tablets all lined up on the fence. They're currently up there at the moment. The flagpole's in here at the moment. The neighbours are aware of the service on Saturday, and fortunately I got an email followed by a phone call from Wyndham TV, and they've come out to have a look at the site, and they've questioned me about how it's going to be conducted, and they're going to be doing a live stream from our place. As I stated on the letter to our neighbours, that we'll have the big PA system at the front. Wifey's going to be the DJ, and we have the music tracks all in sequence ready to go. So we have the ode, followed by the last post, then the minute silence, then the rouse, the Australian anthem, followed by the New Zealand anthem, and lastly, God Save the Queen. Now, God Save the Queen was the national anthem of Australia, which was played World War I veterans, World War II veterans. The official Australian national anthem didn't come into effect till 1984. So hence the reason why God Save the Queen is still there for our veterans' sake. And the New Zealand national anthem will be, of course, with the Māori and followed by our English. At the end of the God Save the Queen, I'll then move forward and lay a wreath around the flagpole. And with Waifi have sent out a little message to our neighbours if we could grab their milk cartons. So the 2 little milk cartons, 2-litre milk cartons, and we've made little candles and drawn poppies on the milk cartons. So we've got about 16 milk cartons sitting at the back, all painted up, ready to go. And that's going to be placed on every one of our driveways in the court. So it's going to be televised for Anzac Day on our court on Wyndham TV.
If anyone wants to tune in, where and how can they do that?
Wyndham TV Facebook page. It'll be streaming live from 5:55.
Thanks, James. Father Turi, anything from your perspective, or anything final you kind of wanted to share with our audience before we wrap things up?
Well, first off, I'm going to miss the service, not having the service at Caulfield RSL. It's very much an important part of my life, and it's an annual event, but the significance of it. We haven't organised anything so amazing as you've done, James, but like a lot of other people, we'll be out in the driveway or out the front of our church with a fire burning, and we're and candles, and that's where I'll be doing taking my service, the Anzac service on Anzac Day. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think that pretty much wraps up the discussion this evening. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I can't say enough to express my gratitude, but thank you, and thank you for giving your time and your wisdom so freely to support our members. Thanks also to everyone at home for tuning in and joining the conversation. I hope you found it enlightening and that you took something from the discussion. Thursday evening, I hope you can join us from 7 again, when we'll be joined by Maria Kumar and Jane Laidlaw. Maria is Secretary of the Victoria Maori Wardens, and Jane is the Centre Manager for Headspace Elstonwick and Bentley. And they will be joining us for a conversation on something that Father Turi just mentioned in his three points: the importance of family, friendship, relationships, compassion, and social support. So until then, be calm, be kind, stay home, and we will see you again. Take care.
Kia ora, John.
Kia ora, John. Thank you. Yeah. Kia ora, Father Turi. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Take care.